I am Belinda Cheeseborough, STEM Education Specialist at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I'm here to share the stories of African Americans and the impacts they've had and continue to have on American culture because of their STEM contributions. Through the Window and Into the Mirror is a video conversation series about the experiences of African American STEM professionals today. This time around, we are focusing on innovation, advocacy, and advancement in the field of tech. During our sessions together, students will peer into the windows of the speakers' lives and learn from their lived experiences. They will also find parts of their culture and lifestyle mirrored in their stories. To everyone listening, it is our hope that you leave here with information, inspiration, and plans for action as you take your first steps towards having careers in STEM. This program is generously supported by Dow. Now, let's meet our speaker. Devin Fagan is a data analyst at iRobot who works in the personalized experience team. His responsibilities include ad hoc analyses for stakeholders, presenting his findings to staff and team members, and using his SQL and analytical skills to increase customer lifetime value and retention. He has helped iRoboteers identify customer behavior and remedy product abandonment. He holds a BA in political science from the City College of New York, and he attended New York Data Science Academy. In his spare time, he enjoys fitness and extreme sports such as rock climbing, martial arts, reading, and all around just chilling. Welcome, Devin.
Hello.
I'm so excited to speak with you today about while engaging the teachers, students, and family of students watching this interview. Okay, so let's move on to our first question. So please tell us about your job, specifically where you work, what you do, and anything else you think is important for us to know.
I'm a data analyst at iRobot. I've been there for about going on 2 years in September. I first started in direct to consumer, where I help perform ad hoc analysis for the engagement team, email engagement team. There I did A/B test measurements, for example. I also helped did basic analysis for my team members and the marketing team. And yeah, that was like my introduction to data and iRobot. Uh, After that, they moved me over to the personalized experience team, which was previously called guidance and coaching, where I was working with long-term customer retention, um, ad hoc analysis, and pretty much just making sure our customers don't abandon our products. Um, and I use SQL, Mo Analytics, and I deliver actual items for our project managers and also our stakeholders, such as the executive team. Uh, it's a very interesting role. It's very thrilling. Um, and there are some dull days, but I do, and the work is very rewarding.
Okay, well, thank you. So we're gonna start with your childhood, going way back when. So think about young Devin. And starting as a child, did you have any interest in STEM related content while growing up? Like, were you interested in maybe astronomy or chemistry or anything related to STEM while growing up?
I was always interested in space. My mom is a huge Star Trek fan, nerd actually. My earliest memories of STEM were actually going in the backyard with a telescope and looking at the stars. Um, when I entered school, I kind of got scared away from STEM, um, because it was just, I don't know when, but it's always in this grade. And I feel like it's when you hit fractions. And yeah, I just feel like you're either good at STEM or you're not. And people put you in two categories. But I always had the heart to want to get back into it. Um, so yeah, I never knew I would be in this particular moment, because I was kind of scared away. But I always wanted to make the world a better place. I always believed that STEM will help us take better places and a better future. Um, it's just that it just wasn't the right time, I like to believe.
So what made you scared of STEM? Was it just like a bad experience with the teacher or with like a concept, a topic, or like
So
when you were younger, like you had?
I went to a private Catholic school in middle school. Um, and I remember being in class, and I remember, like I said, in the school I went to in Brooklyn, New York, um, I was nervous because it felt like, and I explained this to everybody when I was in the education system, um, I felt like there, I feel like it gets a certain point pretty much where teachers start to divide students. And this could be wrong. This is just my personal experience. This is very anecdotal. This might not be true. But for me in particular, I felt like there were the kids that were good at math and there were kids that weren't. And I just happened to fall into the bracket of kids that weren't good at math. Because if you ask my parents, if you ask my mother, she believed I was good at math at a very young age. She herself has very been good at math. She was a computer science major um, when she was in college, before she transitioned out of that. Um, so yeah, it's just that the education system I was in made me feel particularly neglected in STEM. Um, that was it. It just was, I didn't feel like I was good enough.
It's understandable. So if you had someone who was on your side and recognized the potential that you had and saw that you were actually good at math, but maybe just like the way that they were going about teaching it wasn't great or beneficial for you as like a learner, then would you say that you would have had more positive experiences with STEM?
I definitely do. I believe if somebody looked me in the eye and said that math is just a language, um, especially looking now that I do code in Python, I do code in SQL, which is just coding languages, and somebody kind of presented it that way to me, um, that it's just like another English major, that you just need to learn the language to understand where to go, the syntaxes. I do believe that if somebody presented that to me, uh, I would have probably excelled in it. Uh, on that note, I am still very happy about the path I took to get to this point. Um, but yeah, I just wish that we viewed STEM differently in the teaching system that I went to in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Okay. So aside from like the poor experiences in school because of just how the education system operated, did you have like outside experiences that were more positive in regards to STEM? Maybe like museums you went to or programs you participated in after school, things like that.
Oh, definitely. Love the Museum of Natural History. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. Myself, Star Wars, Star Trek. I played Mass Effect, for example, a video game. Played that when I was like 17 through 20. Um, and I pretty much, that by itself changed my life. I've always wanted to be in this field. I've always wanted to create systems or help create a better future, go to space, for example. Too bad astronaut was a little bit too far for me. So yeah, I did have positive experiences. Um, it's just that the technical aspect kind of scared me away. But I feel like I've always had the imagination for it.
Before, because you kind of lead into a later question that I have, but I'm going to ask this question first. So we get questions before the interview, and so a child from DC asked, "Who are your biggest influences growing up?"
So I have, one is my family. My realistic in person is my mother, my grandpa, and my grandma. My grandma's a pastor. Um, she's always been a leader in her community. I remember being at her daycare at a young age, and she's always took control of things and being very strong. Um, my mother, of course, has always been my greatest cheerleader, and I watched her work from uh, being a bus driver to like a really high position in the MTA, which is like a director of like the Accessoride or something along the lines of that, working from from this blue collar job to a higher position and also get her master's degree. My grandpa particularly grew up in poverty. Um, he tells stories all the time. If you were to talk to him about, he had to survive in Sumter, South Carolina, which where my family's originally from. Um, and he is by far today the most resourceful man you can ever meet. But they all inspire for me these three lessons: get up clothes on your back, food on your table, and you got to persevere. And they taught me humility. Like, if you have to survive, you have to do what you have to do to survive, and you have to persevere to get where you need to go. Um, my ideological heroes, because I believe in don't meeting your heroes. When I was in college, community college actually, um, my greatest heroes were Malcolm X, MLK, Assad Shakur, and James Baldwin. And reading Black history really gave me the backbone to persevere, to find my place in this world, and gave me the Black history I needed to keep pushing forward when I have met challenges. I have a lot of heroes, pretty much.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's always good. And that's what just makes like Black African American history so important, and like the whole purpose of our museum. Just knowing where we came from, knowing where we're at now, and knowing how we will persevere in the future. It's like that's all connected to one another. And it's also beautiful, as you were saying, that your family taught you so many different lessons and points and morals that helped shape the person you are today and just basically influence who you are today.
Mhm.
So, getting back into some of the hobbies you mentioned growing up. So, you mentioned that you were into gaming, and particularly Mass Effect is something you played, and you're a big sci-fi person. So, like, what other hobbies did you participate in as a child?
So as a child, sadly, a majority of my so from like, I'm gonna say like 5 to 17 was pretty much, I was a nerd stuck inside gaming. Nothing really exciting about that. I also did taekwondo as a child, but that didn't last that long. I was lazy. So around 17, that's when I started to really get out into the world. Um, I wouldn't say run the streets, as we would say, but I was pretty much exploring, going different avenues. And that's when I really started to become more engaged with physicality. So I got into photography, which really helped me create art and expand. I started reading. Um, then I fell into rock climbing, which really kept me and fit and happy. And it was a new experience for me. I even joined like a group called the Brothers of Climbing and went to Black climbing festivals.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, these hobbies have cemented me and they kept me busy. And most of all, they kept me out of trouble. Um, Again, especially being born in New York City, Brooklyn, in the 90s, it helped me keep stay interesting, but also stay interested. Uh, so yeah, that was some of my hobbies.
That's really cool. Like I don't know, rock climbing is a little difficult. That's a lot of like arm and like core strength, right? To to be pulling yourself up, and like have you actually done rock climbing on like certain cliff sides in like various countries or states or locations, or have it mostly like been indoor rock climbing?
Oh, I did it inside and outside. My grandpa's used to tell me and my girlfriend, you need to stop playing with those rocks. Because in his mind, I've kind of always had like a screw loose a little bit. But no, I went to Red River Gorge, Kentucky. I went to a place in Alabama. Um, and it is for everybody. It's a very inclusive space. LGBTQ, very few Black people there, but when you do find Black people, it's like we got a band together. Um, so that has been my community and my backbone before COVID came and kind of like made things iffy. Um, but yeah, anyone can do it. I really do believe, because of inclusive space and because people will not discriminate. Um, it really helped me expand my horizons, help expand my inclusivity when it comes to others. Um, and yeah, it was just fun.
Awesome. I'm glad that not only were you able to find a healthy hobby, but also a community too. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Mhm.
So moving on to your college years, where did you go for college?
So I went to about three colleges. Um, I am not a straight shooter, but I am happy where I went. So one was City Tech, went right after high school, and I wasn't ready for it, and I flunked out of it. Um, After that, I worked at Pathmark, aka Stop and Shop, for 2 years. Um, and my cousin came up recently, and she was like, I kind of put them in this Get Straight program, um, because I was like, college isn't for me, and working at Stop and Shop in retail, when it humbles you, but it also shows you where you can go if you really don't have a skill or have a degree. So as soon as I got there, worked for 2 years, I was like, I have to go to school, I have to go back, I have to graduate. I went to Kingsborough Community College, were some of the best years of my college life, and really got me really invested in education. And the City College of New York, which is a CUNY school. I love public institutions. They have really saved me and made education affordable for me. And we call it the poor man's Harvard, which is what we say about City College of New York. But it was a great school. I got to work in DC for 4 months, and yeah, it made me believe in myself that I can actually study and do academics.
So for each of those colleges that you went to, and were kind of like trial one, trial two, trial three, um, what did you major in?
So City Tech was civil engineering, which was a huge mistake. Um, Kingsborough Community College was journalism, um, which was,
Wow.
yeah.
What made you pick journalism?
I've always wanted to help people, help others. I was always in political theory. Like my heroes, like I said, were organizers growing up. And writing was one way you can express information to people. So I've enjoyed a newspaper club. I was a managing editor of the newspaper club. Um, and not only that, it was just fun. So journalism was my uh major in community in Kingsborough. Yeah. And then I graduated, went to City College, and decided to study political science, but mostly prepare to go to law school.
Okay, so what made you switch to then go to law school to prepare for going to law school after journalism?
Uh, so I like to do trial phases of my future careers and majors. Working as a managing editor, hearing about how much you have to sacrifice, looking at the pay of journalism and journalism school. Um, Kind of, I wouldn't say chase me out, but it kind of made me reevaluate and open up my eyes to different opportunities. Um, so, and like I said, I've always been into politics. I've even worked as a political organizer before. So it was natural for me to go to a school which has like the colon, we call it, so we have a colon power school in City College, and it is a political science institution in that school. So I said, you know what? I've always been interested in politics. I want to help the world and make the world a better place. Um, why not do a political science major? Yeah,
That's really cool. Yeah, so as you're saying, so you were going through these different paths, you're trying to see if like this is the right fit for you in each of those
yeah,
scenarios, basically.
pretty much.
Okay. And so going off of that, what opportunities did you take advantage of that kind of helped with each of those trial phases or just like helped you where you're at now? Like what opportunities did you take advantage of while you were going to those colleges or maybe the last college that you went to um, that helped with the career trajectory that you're on now?
Okay. So yeah, so in journalism, um, in Kingsborough Community College, um, I worked with I worked on a school paper. After that, I went to City College. Um, and then did political science. And I again went to work in DC. But then because I was working these trial phases, I got out of school and became a paralegal to see if law school was for me. So then I worked in this institution, in two different law firms. And working in law was very revealing to me because, like I said, I just wanted to figure out what I wanted to do. And the lawyers would look me in the eye, completely serious, and look everybody else in the eye and be like, don't become a lawyer. And that was my cue to be to not become a lawyer. No, they weren't telling me because they wanted to keep the industry less saturated. They were really like, I would not become one. Some even crying in front of my friends. Yeah, I look at red flags, I listen to others. And what led me to the path was that we were doing this housewarming. Me and my girlfriends were on this housewarming party one day. And I've had this friend, and you know, there's always these academics, these amazing people, and that have like 3 majors in college.
The
Yeah,
overachievers.
yeah, the overachievers. And I'm just a achiever, but she was an overachiever. And so then she shows me coding one day. And at this point I was looking at computers, I was looking at STEM. I really thought that the social sciences would be for me. And then at this party, I look at what she does and I go, oh, that's interesting. Fast forward a few months, I start playing with a Udemy course on Python. And next thing you know, I go, wow, this is interesting. This is fun. So I kind of just fell into this field, I should say. Not that, like, if you were to look at the correlations of where I was coming from, you will not find any pattern whatsoever. It was kind of like, wow, I should try this out next. And yeah, I lucked out.
That actually leads me into my next question, moving into the career phase of this conversation. So you mentioned because you had such a winding path that and you kind of like fell into what you're doing now. But what inspired you to transition into data? And you kind of got into a little bit was like working with coding itself, got you inspired a little bit. But what else inspired you to transition into um, the field of like the big field of data?
So one, because I prefer to come to honest, was definitely stability. Two was I enjoyed it. I was thrilled about doing, for example, print Hello World. I enjoy um looking up I enjoy like learning about statistics. I enjoy machine learning, especially when I went to coding boot camp. Even though the boot camp was really difficult and hard, you know, I was always growing and learning and getting better. Um, yeah, and again, rewinding back, it proved to me that like I can work in STEM. It showed me that when I was a kid, I should never got chased away, and it showed me that um, I'm not just as good as everybody else, but I can keep up in this field. Uh, so yeah, like I said, I've always wanted since I was younger to be one of those cool engineers that you see in Star Trek that can run down the exploding hallway and pretty much figure out the next step using some science mumbo jumbo or babble that they do. But it really proved to me that I can be here and I deserve to be here. And, you know, like I don't have the formal education, but my imagination can be used here.
So before we move on, you mentioned machine learning. So for the people who don't know what machine learning is, can you give a brief explanation of what machine learning is?
Uh, it's been so long. I'm a data analyst. But anyway, machine learning. Oh man, it's gonna embarrass me in front of everybody. Machine
No.
learning is pretty much um you take a large data set, think about like an Excel spreadsheet or a spreadsheet of any kind. Um, there are the algorithms that pretty much run these spreadsheets through a bunch of statistical formulas and statistical, it's been so long, statistics, and pretty much, and then they can pretty much either predict or guesstimate, we call it predict, the outcome of uh, future actions. For example, you could predict housing market prices based on past data. You can predict statistically if a customer is more likely to run a mission on a particular day based on their past data. Um, just know statistics, algorithms, Python, magic. That's my that's my go-to.
That was a good explanation. I appreciate that. So the second part of the question I asked you before is how difficult was the transition from, because you were a paralegal and then all of a sudden you found coding and you're like, oh, coding is amazing. And now you're like, I'm a data analyst. So like how difficult was that transition?
So one, it was very difficult. Mostly because me and my girlfriend were in very bad place when it came to our careers. Her job was toxic, my job was toxic. And it was difficult, and we made it even more difficult because we both left our jobs at the same time, paying rent, which I do not recommend to anybody at all. So one, it was difficult because I was coming in from, I basically haven't took a statistics course since early college, like 2014, 2016, 2017. I haven't took a math course. Not only that, we both left our jobs. And then, yeah, I pretty much took a gamble. So the way this went was, I did not know if I was going to get into New York Data Science Academy. I took out a $5,000 loan to pretty much take their 2 introduction courses and learn how to code in Python and code in R. Not knowing if I was going to get into this boot camp. From there, I then took their entrance exam, and luckily through Google and through hard work, 2 months later, they accepted me. During this time, COVID also hit. So we were stuck inside. And this was the first time we were working online. Like this was the first time we were working remote. The coding bootcamp was tough. I suffer from imposter syndrome every day. I was coding 12 hours a week, 12 hours a day, actually. But I guess what helped me overcome was that like I did have help from Sophie's uncle, who is a statistician. But I also work together with others. One of the skills I've always been good at is getting people to work together, looking for a community, and just communicating with others. So I would say it was difficult, but again, going back to my grandpa, if you just persevere, you work at it. But not only that, like you don't allow that voice in your head to say, give up, especially when you just took out a momentous loan. Yeah, we pretty much took a gamble. We had no other, we had to get through pretty much. I had to finish this boot camp. Was that a good answer?
That was a good answer for the transition. So we're actually going to talk about imposter syndrome a little bit later, but you gave a wonderful like short answer for like how you deal with it. But let's move on into your current role. So you're working as a data analyst with iRobot. So what is your favorite part of your job is working as a data analyst?
The community, the people. I feel it's nice to see my actual work be used, for example, in executive team meetings, especially when they're developing strategies. It's nice to be listened to for once. Working as a paralegal, I never felt like what I did was worthwhile. It was a lot of printing, and now I actually see my work be used. I actually am using my brain. I'm plotting, I'm thinking. And when you get a good dashboard going, it's very rewarding. So yeah, that I definitely love that aspect of it, that I am making an impact. That's always what I want in a job, is to make an impact and make it feel like I'm actually bringing something to the table.
Beautiful. So, what about the most challenging part of your job?
I guess the most challenging impact of the job for me in particular is that working from home has created a new, like a different type of silo that, you know, is different and kind of difficult. Um, on that note, just by communicating with others, I can overcome it. Um, also, I guess, and this is just presently, there was a lot happening at iRobot, a lot of random things. For example, we got acquired by Amazon just today. So I guess the lack of stability in the eventful week that is happening is challenging. Um, yeah, that's what I can think of challenging right now.
I can only assume so. It's just like chaos that ensued
Yeah.
afterwards, after the announcement. Probably, yeah, made everyone feel a little uneasy, or very uneasy. So, aside from the acquisition that happened, what do you typically do in a work week? Like, what does a typical work week look like for you?
So a typical work week is, so we have 3 week sprints. So let's just start at the start there. I will get my tickets, for example, which is story pointed, for example, 1 to 12 points is my limit, which means, so story pointing is you pretty much rank how long this test is going to take you. A 1 if it's easy, so you can do it in like a few hours. Like you go a 12 is going to take you like a whole entire, what we call 3 week sprints. I contact my project manager and my product manager, determine which ones and how to move forward from there. And then after that, I get to work. So I mostly code in SQL. And it's my job to make sure that my deliverables is easy to understand. For example, I make very easy to understand charts with words on it, so therefore nobody can get confused, because I want to simplify my work as much as possible. Other than that, I'm doing code review, chit chatting with coworkers, and yeah, it's relatively slow paced. But a regular day is just me coding for about 6 hours a day, and trying to make sure that my work is easy to understand, commented, and just have a deliverable at the end of the sprint, so therefore my stakeholders can be happy. Yeah.
That makes sense, and also reminds me of some days of
Oh, no.
my graduate school days of just spending hours upon hours coding in Python. So earlier you've mentioned several times about these different coding languages. So like what exactly is Python? And like in your understanding, you don't have to give like a proper definition. But we talked about Python, SQL, and R. Like what are the purposes of those three programs that you've mentioned so far?
So SQL is a language which takes, which I guess if you say you take a data, it's a database language. So it connects to, for example, AWS, which is Amazon. I'm using so much lingo. AWS, and it pulls in data or like spreadsheet information. In your job, you can pretty much simplistically, you would just look for regular statistics, average, medians, and then create like graphs and charts to show, for example, how long does it take a customer to fully customize a robotic map? Looking at the average amount of time. So think Excel spreadsheet, and using that spreadsheet and just adding, subtracting, multiplying on a spreadsheet. I think that's the most simplistic way. Python is a little more complex, does the same thing, except Python has so many packages. You do machine learning, you have like matplot, live. You can graph way more graphs. You can make games on it. Uh, Python is for data analytics, we use it, and for data science, they use it for machine learning to predict, again, to predict outcomes of our customers. But you can also use that for just basic analytics as well. SQL is simplistic, and I really believe anybody can learn it. Python takes a little more time, but again, anybody can learn it as well. And R is more statistician based, but it does the same thing. Actually, a little bit less than Python. Or you can do more. I haven't worked with it in a long time.
There are a lot of coding languages, and depending on what you were doing, there's a lot of benefits to learning different coding languages. They all have their little quirks and things like. I especially learned Python in grad school and used it a lot for my research. It's a very fun language to work with, and it's like one of the basic languages that people should definitely pick up on if they're interested in coding. But moving on to the imposter syndrome question that we got from an adult from DC. They asked, once you get your STEM degree and first job, how do you manage to avoid imposter syndrome and feelings of inadequacy?
So the good news about the question is that I don't have a STEM degree. Still, I have a political science degree. And I would say that imposter syndrome is very difficult. Mostly because one, I believe I'm the only person on the team with a bachelor's degree. Everybody else has a master's degree or a PhD on my team. One thing I have learned in life is that comparison is a thief of joy. You cannot compare yourself to others. We all come with certain sets of skills. What I bring to the table is experience, but I also bring adaptability, and they kind of consider me to be a very generalist person on the team. So how do you do an imposter syndrome? Sadly, you just have to work through it. And you have to understand that, like, if you have gotten to this role, if you did get the degree, you deserve to be there. Yeah, even if you got there by sheer luck, you deserve to be there, and you have worked hard to get there. Everything you do in life will come back. Everything you do in life will play a part in your future. When I was working at Coalition for Juvenile Justice, I worked a retail job in Quicksilver, which was like a surfing shop for winter break. Turns out that folding shirts actually came in handy at this particular convention we went to when they were selling shirts. Yeah, just hold strong, understand that, like, you are good enough. And if you don't feel like you're good enough, take a break, go lay down, meditate, go take your mind off of it, and come back and understand that, yeah, this is for you, especially when you get that job. Or if you don't get that job, if you want it, you deserve it. If you work hard to, yeah. Or get lucky.
But also, like, adding on to what you're saying, because you also mentioned this earlier with your rock climbing community and being inclusive, that the community also helps a lot with imposter syndrome and making you have those feelings of belonging. So those voices in your head that's telling you, you don't belong here, you're not good enough to be doing this work, they kind of subside a bit, because then you feel included and feel like you're part of that team. So that, I want to just add on to like the advice that you were giving. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my family. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my girlfriend. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my friends. My family has always been my greatest support system. We need people. We need each other. No one man is an island. So yeah, go have a drink with your friends. Go talk to your family. Vent to them if you need to. I remember when I failed the LSAT multiple times. My family used to walk up to me, and we're a very blunt but open family. They're like, Devin, why are you freaking out for? Like, you'll be fine. Like, this doesn't determine who you are. This doesn't determine your worth. And that has really helped me overcome a lot of challenges, is their advice and their support.
Okay. That was really good. Thank you for that. Thank you for your advice. So, another adult from DC asks, I'm an educator and would like to know how I can promote STEM among students of color in terms of events and programs.
Hmm. Good question. Going back to what I started earlier, like I said, if I was younger, I would want to be encouraged, but I would also like I said, when I was a kid, I viewed math as this or STEM as this like this great thing that only special people can learn. And I'm pretty sure there are kids in your class that view it as the same way. Um, Honestly, just tell the kid it's just another language. Tell them that they just need to learn the syntax. Tell them um that anybody can learn this. Also tell them to read the book. Oh man, I'm going back. Outliers, by Malcolm Gladwell, which really helped me overcome my STEM fear and my math fear. Um, and in this book, he talks about how, for example, um, the relationship between how Americans view STEM and, for example, China views STEM is that in China, they view math and mathematics as something that you need to work for. Like you're not, in America, we view it as more, like I said, you're either good at it or you're not. In China, they view it as something that needs to be worked out. That this takes time, this takes practice, it takes trial and error, and that anyone can learn it if you just put in the hours. Um, so yeah, just don't, if you can talk to me when I was a kid, just go like, yeah, you can do it. You are good at this. You just got to practice. Um, just think of it
You
like a
touched on that.
doing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry, I didn't. I was letting you finish. You touched on a really good point of the fact that we just need to reframe how we think about STEM and the various fields in STEM and who can be in it and who cannot. Because it's not about who can be in it and who cannot. It's very much anybody can be in it. And if you like being in it, then be involved in it.
Yeah.
Um, it's not a place for the elites, even though that's how some places like to make themselves. Like only the smartest can be here. And that's not how that works because even the people who may not be a genius like you, they offer amazing ideas that help further the field in some way. So yeah, that was a very excellent point that you made.
Yeah. No more gatekeeping, pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Death to gatekeeping. Okay. So moving on to your life outside of work. So you mentioned how your family was the biggest influence in your life, and I'm assuming they probably still are. I know your mom is in the audience. If she is, hi mom. um, but so do you have any new like role models or new influences that you look to now as an adult that you didn't look to when you were younger?
Actually, no, my role models have stayed relatively the same over time. Like I said, just having such strong individuals in my life. And actually, I'm just gonna say I think everybody in the attendees is my family. Hey, everybody. Uh, I have a very big family. Um, but yeah, as you can see, the support system, we love each other and we support each other. And yeah, I guess so. I'm gonna be honest. One of my role models, I'm disgusted to say it, was like before I got into them was Elon Musk. Terrible. So I'll just stick like that was a bad decision. I'll just stick with what I know. Who have shown me that um the people who have shown me that they are people that are very strong and resilient and they persevere and they have grit, which is my family and my ideological heroes. I think once I hit like 22, 23, I think I was like, this is my heroes. And I was just done. These are my role models.
Elon Musk is.
Yeah, I know. Don't get me started.
I won't make too many comments. But yeah, so you also mentioned that as a child and also as a teenager, especially 5 through 17, that you were big into sci-fi related things and also gaming a bit and just like indoor activities. And you expanded to rock climbing and more outdoor activities. So do you still partake in those hobbies now? I know you still partake in rock climbing. Um, but do you partake in those hobbies now, like gaming and other things like that? And like, have you taken on even more hobbies now as an
Yeah.
adult?
So we're so the next thing I want to do is mountaineering. Um, because I'm an adrenaline junkie. So I'm taking a class in January, uh, on going on an expedition. Um,
That
yeah,
sounds so cool.
yeah. Other than that, no, just because of COVID, and COVID has played a huge role in destroying hobbies. Um, I'm getting back into rock climbing. Right now I'm working on just physical fitness and training up for mountaineering next year. Going on an expedition, which you need a lot of endurance for it. Um, and I do want to try ice climbing, even though that is dangerous. But again, I'm going to take a class for it. I'm not going to do it without professional help. Um, I will be fine to my family and my audience. Uh, yeah, so that's my other goal right now.
That's really cool. So you said you want to take up mountaineering. So which mountains are you interested in doing expeditions on?
So there's Mount Washington, which is because I currently live in Boston, which is in New Hampshire. Um, and maybe Mount Rainier, but I'm not gonna do the insane ones like Everest or K2. I just want to do it casually and safely.
Okay.
Um, I don't need that big of a challenge. Life is challenging enough in this body. I don't need to be the best in the world mountaineer. Yeah.
Yeah, seeing the summit from the local mountains and like other places is sufficient, right?
Yeah, I'll be happy just doing what everybody else, what most people do, and then I'll go like, "Wow, that was fun," and then I'll just go back home and enjoy my house, well, my apartment.
It's so cool. I love that. I know that for me, at some point in my life, I want to do like the daredevil activities like bungee jumping or skydiving and things like that, just to have fun. I don't know
Skydiving,
if you've done that.
I have not had the money, but I will do skydiving one day. I'm also looking at taking diving courses. Um, yeah, this is not a STEM conversation at this point, but yeah, this is so I'm looking to take
Conversation.
diving because diving looks cool. I always want to be a better swimmer. And skydiving, I want to do once safely, unless I really like it. Then I won't tell anybody else in my family when I'm doing that.
So we're coming upon the end, and I have the last couple questions for you. So, given your whole journey that has wound up until where you are now, what does Black or African American representation in data mean to
One, it means showing up. Two, it means helping other Black people get into these roles. Um, I don't believe Black people should or have to be twice as good to qualify for these particular positions. Um, One of my colleagues has a PhD. She's a data analyst. She deserves to be a senior data analyst. She deserves to be a data scientist at this point. We should not have to be twice as good. So when I do see someone that meets the qualifications, they pass technical interview, they do great, especially as a Black person, like especially as a Black person, like Black person really. Um, when they do get into these particular roles, and they pass the tech interview, they do great on the personality and they get to the end. Um, yeah, why not advocate for them? Um, So yeah, that's what it means. It means helping out a lot, getting more Black people into tech, because tech will benefit from us, especially with the racism in tech when it comes to like identification or cameras or not even using a training data set, uh, which is not hard to find photos of Black people on the internet to train algorithms to look for us when it comes to facial recognition. Um, or for example, with soap dispensaries, notifying seeing darker skin and actually coming out. I believe that it is our job to diversify if we can and when we can.
Okay, that's good. And my final question for you is, what advice do you have for members of our audience that want to follow a similar path as you?
Um, if you want to get into STEM, if you are intrigued, um, I would say go for it. Um, take account, like one, look at your resources. Um, Two, there's a lot of free resources online that you can do to train up your mathematics. Two, a lot of free courses online. There's Udemy. Um, there is Coursera. And if you feel that you in your heart can benefit, if you feel that you have what it takes, um, then I would say go for it. Um, Also, so just to say this, as you can also tell, I changed a lot of careers in my life. Um, One of my favorite characters in Abbott Elementary is a janitor, um, because the janitor said sometimes we have tunnel vision and we miss. Like I'm kind of like I kind of feel like janitor sometimes because I'm kind of just along for the ride. I just see for my career and where I'm going, but sometimes we have tunnel vision and we kind of miss where we have to go. So make sure if you do have a goal, make sure you don't have your blinders on. You look at other opportunities um, as well. Uh, STEM is great, but there are tons of career in STEM. There are multiple things you can do. If you want to be a data scientist, or if like, or if you want to be a machine learning engineer, if you want to be a data analyst, there's so many opportunities you go to. Do your research and then just go for it, you know? Um, and stay in school. Please, it's way more easy to stay in school and get A's or B's than it is to take my path or go to a coding boot camp. Um, and yeah, that's my advice.
Devin, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story with us and for giving us insight into the world of data. To everyone watching, thank you for spending your time with the National Museum of African American History and Cultures through the window and into the mirror, career conversation series. Thank you all for your participation, and please remember, history is made by doing ordinary tasks extraordinarily well over long periods of time. Thank you very, very much. Stay safe and have an amazing weekend.
Thank you.